There are few motorcycles more important to Ducati than the Monster. Since the Monster's debut at the 1992 Intermot Show in Cologne, motorcycles badged as Monsters have gone on to sell over 350,000 units worldwide. The bike itself has become a style benchmark, lauded for its simplistic design that keeps the ethos of easy riding at heart while giving a sprinkling of punk attitude to boot. For 2021, Ducati is overhauling its junior Monster. Gone is the Monster 821, replaced by a new 937cc edition that's far more than just a slap of paint and an increase in cubes. Under the hood sits a revised version of the same motor found in the Supersport and the Hypermotard, with compression increased to 13.3 to 1 and power acclaimed 111 horsepower at 9,250 RPM. Torque is registered at 69 pounds-feet at 6,500 RPM. Those are handy little numbers, but the big difference is in torque, where the new model outshines the 821 spectacularly from 4,000 to 8,000 RPM, maintaining a near 20 pounds-feet advantage. You can affect much of the Monster's behaviour by the adjustable riding modes, of which you get 3 levels in Sport, Touring and Urban, and all 3 of which you can go into and adjust the individual parameters. The Monster's IMU gets the 8-stage traction control, 3-stage cornering ABS, and 4-stage wheelie control, and it also dictates the cut time for the quick shifter. Unfortunately, there's no cruise control, which we found a little disappointing. The $11,895 MSRP base model and the $12,095 MSRP Monster Plus that comes with a small accessory screen and passenger seat cover are the first motorcycles to bear the famous Monster name without a steel trellis frame. Once considered the holy ground for Ducati, the steel trellis is slowly moving towards extinction, with the Monster utilising a front frame design similar to that found on the Ducati Panigale V4 Superbike. The new chassis and the diet the remainder of the motorcycle has gone on has seen Ducati lop off an incredible 40 pounds of weight, with the company claiming the new Monster will tip the scales at 414 pounds ready to ride with a 3.7 gallon tank of gas. Interestingly, the suspension has no adjustment on the front and only preload on the rear. That's pretty surprising given the price, but the ride quality is still exceptionally nice at the medium speed levels you'll most likely ride this machine. One area of the new Monster that has sent internet forums and social media raging is the styling. LED lighting abounds on the new Monster, but that's not the talking point. It's that this is the biggest deviation from the classic Monster aesthetic since 1992, which ultimately accounts to blasphemy according to many Ducatisti. So is it really that big a difference? Well, we grabbed the bike for a couple of days in SoCal, and we also did the national launch in San Francisco just to see what all the fuss is about.
It's quite funny to see how much the Monster has evolved in its time. It's kind of always been looked at as a bike that hasn't really changed, although that's not entirely true. You know, when you think back to the original Monster back of 1992-93, I mean, yes, the basic ethos of the design has always stayed the same, but it's always kind of morphed around, you know, from sort of bare bones, kind of cruisery, almost like a beach cruiser in a way kind of deal, like a classic style, almost British style, you know, twin cylinder bike. And then through the years, so when you get to things like the S4R and things like that, like those bikes were basically the power naked bikes of their day. You know, those things came out with the superbike motors. They were really ballsy things. And as time sort of progressed, the Monster's design gradually started to go back towards what it originally was, to be more of a sort of bike for the people almost. And now we've got this one. This one is, I suppose, again channeling the current trends in the motorcycle industry of a bit more of a sort of a fun middleweight naked bike kind of deal. I mean, you can kind of base this thing pretty much in between, say, something like the MT-09, or it's probably not entirely fair. It's probably third in the line between in the performance stakes between something like an MT-09 and a KTM 890 Duke. Now those two bikes are absolutely fantastic, and I mean, I'm an enormous fan of the 890 Ducati. I think that's just the duck's nuts, that bike. That thing is awesome. But this thing certainly has grown, in this iteration at least, it's certainly grown to be a bit more of a sportier bike than the last one was. Yeah, considering that this thing has unadjustable suspension, the ride is really plush. It's really quite nice. Like when I looked at the spec sheet, I was like, oh dear, this isn't going to be much fun. But they've done a really good job with this suspension. Granted, we're on pretty smooth roads here, so it's not going to stress the suspension too much. But I actually got this bike. This is the second ride I've had on it. I originally got this bike. We had this ride in San Francisco for the national launch, and I loved it so much I decided to get one back for a couple of days just to do a bit more work on it. It's not as intimidating in the it's nowhere near, I should say, not even a little bit, it's nowhere near as intimidating in the power delivery as what the old 821 was. It's a very docile power delivery. I remember when we were on the launch, we had people of all riding abilities and sort of experience levels, and everyone was just, you could easily find a setting on this that suited what you're after. It's got that lovely little quick shifter as well, which makes for pretty seamless gear changes. It's not the smoothest gear shift, but then again, it wouldn't be a Ducati if it was. It's amazing how much skinnier this bike is between the tank and the seat. The old Monster had those big bulbous tanks which sort of splayed your knees out really far. Made it very easy for you to be able to grab the tank with your knees, mind you. But yeah, this is a much skinnier design, and also easier for you to be able to tuck your legs in when you're going around bends. Sort of allows you to sort of push the thing with your knees a bit more. I would have very much preferred to have had cruise control with a Monster, especially considering that this is going to be, best part of 12 grand once you've got through all the bits and pieces. Some cruise control on this would have been real nice. But the brakes are good, you get Brembo radial master cylinder brakes. I'm not actually sure what master cylinder that is, what size it is, but it's got a lot of feel and does have good power as well. Now clutch is very nice, very light pull on the clutch. It's funny, they've sort of done the magic trick of being able to make this bike better for newcomers while also making it better really for more experienced riders. That increase in CC from 821 to 937 has just given the Monster just a bit more drivability. Like, it doesn't rely so much on the revs like it used to get going. I mean, this is the kind of engine that anyone can get on and enjoy. Go for a nice little scoot down to Laguna Beach. Must admit, I probably should have done this ride when there wasn't as many cars on the road, but it's pretty hard to tell. The cruise is lovely. I mean, I don't think I would really want to take one of these things on, long distance ride. That little screen up front, it does a little bit. It definitely deflects a little bit of the wind coming up towards me, but you're still a big old sail when you're riding a naked bike. So unless you're going to go throw a screen, like a real screen on it, you're not really going to get rid of a lot of wind noise and wind deflection. But overall, it's a really sweet little bike. It's, as I say, it's one of those bikes that a lot of people are going to be able to get something out of. And I got to say, I like the styling. I think it looks cool, and I like how it's different. A lot of people don't like that, but I do. And cruise down Ocean Avenue. There's a couple of cute little coffee spots down here. This'll do.
All right, so just popped in here for a quick coffee on Ocean Street in Laguna Beach. Really love a little spot. I love coming down here. I cannot tell you the amount of test bikes I've taken here in the last 5 years. Probably hundreds, probably more. Anyway, yeah. So look, I've had now 1, 2, 3. I've had 3 days on the Ducati, on the new Ducati. I was going to say Ducati Street Fighter. Oops. No, Ducati Monster, and I really enjoy it. I really do. I'm kind of surprised by how much I like it, because I look at the spec sheet and it doesn't look like it's going to be that good, especially in the suspension. The suspension is, I'm a bit of a stickler for that stuff now, and I really didn't think that having completely unadjustable suspension and just preload on the rear was going to be able to do anything. But it's really smooth. The ride's really nice. It definitely lends you into not thrashing the life out of the thing. It's not. It's kind of like taking a bit back from being a full-blown sports naked bike to being a fun naked bike, I guess. A bit more than a commuter, a bit less than a full-on Street Fighter. So it's that really nice little middle ground that they've managed to sort of strike, which is pretty rare, to be honest. And you know, for the price, it's not so bad. I mean, you're definitely dealing with a little bit more than what you are on something like an MT-09 Yamaha, for example. And look, the MT-09 is a little bit more hard-edged than this. It's not quite as sort of forgiving and not as soft, really, as what you're going to get with your Ducati Monster. But we had a couple of good runs on the thing up in San Francisco for launch, and actually when we were up there, I caught up with Moto America racer and sort of all-round industry personality Shelina Moreda, and this is what she had to say about it. All right, let's start off with the engine. This is a relatively redesigned engine, lots of new lighter parts. What do you think? You enjoy it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was around 111 horsepower,
yeah, 111,
right?
Yeah.
And to me, it seemed like the power delivery was great. Like, it was right there when I needed it. I mean, it got up and went. We rail on the back roads. It was a fun bike to be riding there. So I thought the engine, the power was great. We had a lot of electronics with this, new quick shifter. You were saying that you had some issues with the quick shifter before. Well, so I didn't even know that it had a quick shifter and auto blip at first. And Jake Zemke, he's pulled up next to me. He was like, hey, it's got a quick shifter and auto blip. And that changed my day. I had trouble with finding neutral on the bike that I was on. Was the thing that I had. But once it got warmed up, then it was fine to me. You had I don't know if you rode it, but you sat on the one with the, so it gets kind of confusing here. So you get a standard seat height is, what, 32.3 mil, I had to write this down. 32.3 mil, then you can get a standard suspension with a lowered seat, 31.5, and then you can get lowered suspension and lowered seat at 30.5. Yeah. So what were your thoughts? Like you tried all three, did you? So I sat on it with just the suspension lowered, and I could actually stand flat-footed. Yeah. Which never happens on any bike. I'm 5'6", and usually I'm on my tippy toes, which is fine for me, but I know that it makes a lot of riders more comfortable if they can actually touch the ground. So that was nice. And then they put the lowered seat on it besides, and then it was like, then it's easy. Yeah. I mean, then I'm totally flat-footed and have room. So somebody that was shorter than me could still sit flat-footed. If it were me, I'd probably do like maybe the lowered seat first and then try the suspension. But honestly, like, this bike it's a more narrow bike, and so it didn't feel too big. It wasn't cumbersome, you know? So I like the bike just fine without the lowering kit, so. Right. You mentioned today also you were playing around a lot with levers. Levers, I should say. Levers. Not levers. I'm very picky about my levers. Yeah, so I have a slightly smaller hands than a lot of the guys do, and so I'm really picky with how close the levers are to the handlebars. And most bikes come stock with levers. When they come stock with levers that are adjustable, they don't adjust in enough. And so I was a little bit bummed to hear that this one was the same adjustability as a lot of the models, but then when I sat on it, they were actually at the closest setting, they were actually perfect for me. And it's a comfort thing. Sure. It's so, I mean, you're going to feel more comfortable on the bike if your levers are adjustable and reachable to you. Yeah. And so if you could reach them fine, you could reach them fine too, right? Yeah. And I could, so easy, it was perfect. Yeah. What about electronics? There's, what, three power modes, And you
8-stage traction control, wheelie control, launch control.
Yep.
Everything buddy control.
And you could adjust them all on the fly, which I loved. I did.
Yeah.
You just have to let the throttle off to be able to adjust them, and it's great. So we were able to set different settings in each of mine, the touring, sport, and one other one. And so we were able to adjust the wheelie control, traction control, all the different things on each one of the packages. And so I was able to switch them so that the throttle felt different on one. The wheelie control was off on all of them.
Yep. You got some good ones. Yeah, you got some good ones.
I'm learning from the best over here.
Ducati electronics are traditionally like everything, you know what I mean? Like there's everything that you can adjust. So it's very easy to get lost, I always find, especially on superbikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this is pared down to basically what you need.
But it's like everything that you need. And okay, so my favorite part about the electronics is that when you're adjusting through them, it highlights, actually on the screen, it highlights the part of the bike that it's going to adjust for you. And like,
yeah, it has a little like logo of the bike.
Yeah. And like for me, that's ideal because it's no brainer. It's written out in coloring book for you.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
So.
Exactly. Yeah, they did good on that. Like they've improved the user experience of the dash design.
Oh yeah,
it's become a lot easier.
It looks great, and it's super user friendly.
Yeah, bummer that it doesn't have cruise control. That's a bit of a pain. It's got good stuff like things. You know, you wouldn't believe how many people forget this stuff. Like it's got a fuel gauge. You know, the Street Fighter doesn't even have a fuel gauge, or at least it didn't when it came out. I don't know if it's got one now, but it didn't back then. I mean, just little things like that. That just makes a decent road bike. Throttle is much improved. Brakes are pretty nice. Really good feel at that lever, really nice. Gearbox is very good with that quick shifter. It's all around that. The quick shift obviously is an optional extra, but overall it's a really nice bike. It's much more skinny from the tank to the seat, which makes it a lot easier for people of all kinds of levels to be able to ride. You know, new guys and girls. So, you know, skinnier tank makes it easier to be able to put your foot down at the lights because your legs aren't splayed out like that. So just the little things like that, little changes have made the bike a little bit better for everybody overall. So, look, I really enjoyed the thing. I enjoyed it so much. I asked Ducati if I could have it back for another bit more of a ride. So yeah, look, a really cool little bike from Ducati, and look, great to see the Monster range and the Monster name continue on and change. You know, I mean, like I've always like a classic design is only classic if it doesn't age, and I kind of thought the Ducati Monster design was starting to age a little bit, even though the original is, you know, about as timeless as you're going to get. Miguel Galluzzi lives up in Pasadena and now firm property of Piaggio. But I mean, what a genius that guy was, man. I mean, to create a design that lasts that long, really, really cool. So anyway, it's the new iteration of the Monster. It's the new generation of the Monster. Hopefully it's going to bring a few more people into riding and get some more bums on seats, because that's what we need. So anyway, guys, if you like this, give us these ones. If you didn't, these ones, comments down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Until next time, keep a rubber side down, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.